Just that we had a slight.
You're live.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Apologies for the late start. This is what happens when nobody has any technical experience, and it wasn't even a technical issue. It's just that we did not plug in the microphone all the way in, so our volume issues we're still blaming it on technology, just because
Technology.
So tonight we have Dwayne with us, our usual partner in crime, and our guest tonight is Neeraj Vensimal from Air BnB. He will be representing the sector tonight and sharing all the information we need to know to understand the sector and some of the issues that we would have been seeing in the press recently. So I'll pass over to Dwayne.
Okay, so tonight Crystal is going to be doing the sharing around. So what we'll do is we'll give a little time for people to join in, as well as for Crystal to share it on the page and the other links. Neeraj is going to do the same, and then we will do some. We will have Neeraj talk a little bit about Airbnb to find out what is Airbnb, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges. We're going to get straight into the nitty-gritty. I just want to make it clear that we did reach out to the BHTA to see if they would send, if someone would be willing to come to speak on the topic as well, and we did speak to a representative there, but we have not heard back anything from them. So I just want to make it clear that we did reach out to try to get a not say opposing, a contrarian view to the Airbnb proposal. Are we looking there, Crystal?
I'm going to share it one more time just to make sure it gets there.
Share it on my page too. You're all set up too, Neeraj?
Yeah, it seems so.
Also too, we're in a new location tonight temporarily, so if there are any audio or Wi-Fi issues, please let us know and we will try it as best as we can to resolve them.
There we go.
We're all good?
I believe so.
I'm not seeing it on the page itself though.
I shared it twice. I'm not seeing it in the group page.
It's on your
It is on my page. Of course.
copy link.
That's what I'll do.
It says page not found.
This is what happens when I do it instead of doing. But the link has been posted.
So let's go back and check. It's not showing up.
That's interesting.
Let me see if I can pick it up on my phone. It's showing that we're live. Please bear with us while we sort out the technical issues here. There you go. That should be it.
That's very strange. It's not posting there. Let me do a response here. Okay.
It's there.
It posted as a comment, but it will not post as an original post.
Are you seeing it?
No, I'm not seeing it on the page, and I tried to share it on my page, but no luck.
Okay, we have others are sharing the videos, so
Something must be working.
yes. But
Okay.
we'll continue for now.
Can David? You want to see if you can share it on? Can you put it on his on his app? Okay. All right. We'll try it this evening. Airbnb. Okay. We'll try it. Turn on the volume. All right. We'll try it this evening. All right. So Neeraj.
Yes.
So we apologize for the technical issues. Hopefully we have it now better. So Neeraj, we will turn it over to you as you explain a little bit about Airbnb, and you can explain a little bit who Neeraj is.
No problem. So basically right now Airbnb is a home sharing company, but they started into a new product called Trip. So it's really about experiencing the culture of a place through the individual themselves. So whether you're going to stay in someone's home or you actually want to do an activity with them. So
Okay.
Trips would have launched just in November. Do we have to hold this all the time?
No.
Okay.
So when you say trips, this is a part of the Airbnb culture and circle?
It's a new product that they launched in November,
Okay.
so it's essentially like activities, things to do, and so
Okay.
on. So if you're in Cuba, for example, you could book a samba class with a Cuban, or if you want to do surfing with Josh, for example, you can actually book like a multi-day tour. They call it immersions. So it's about immersing yourself into the local culture.
So for those who have never actually experienced Airbnb, which is an acronym for breakfast, so just to give a little background on why persons would choose this option, what it actually entails, it benefits of this over a hotel stay, and how it got started in Barbados.
Well, it was started in 2008, but in Barbados it was really, the first host was around 2010 or 11.
Okay.
And people want to come and they really want to stay in a person's home to experience the culture of the person.
As opposed to the hotel, which puts on a show for everybody.
Well, I wouldn't say it like that, but the hotels have their own category of product, and this one is really about putting the people at the heart of the product.
Okay. So how did you get involved?
I just was working at one of the hotels. I was at Crane first in 2013, and I was starting at Elegant Hotels, and I was always in the back office at these hotels, so I wanted to have more interaction with guests.
Okay.
So what I did was list it on the website in December 2013, and in January I had someone come. Within 20, I would say, actually after finishing listing, I would say maybe 48 hours, so 3 guys from Sweden showed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And they were from Facebook, Google, and Spotify, so I was hooked.
nice. So, one of the articles that we would have seen recently, and we even have heard government complaining about it, where you have sectors in Barbados that seem to fly under the tax radar. And there's been a lot of discussion concerning competition as well with the hotel industry and the benefits or the disadvantages of promoting Airbnb. So what would be your comments or feedback where that is concerned?
Well, the official position of the company has always been that they want to pay taxes, right? So they don't try to work against governments. They really do want to work with governments, and they want to provide economic opportunities to ordinary people, like ordinary Barbadians in this instance. And that way, it's not just about home sharing anymore, as I mentioned. It's really about trips as well, too. So you could have music experiences, for example, if Gabby wanted to come and sing in your home. That's something that they can do. And they want to be taxed. It's just a matter of actually doing a deal with the government.
So that's just a hint to all of those who would have been tagged on to our cultural industries video with Adonijah and RPD that we can incorporate, because they did complain that sometimes the hotel industry is not as inviting for local talent as they would like. So maybe this is a suggestion where you can have the local artistry involved in sharing that cultural experience with persons who choose this as an option.
Yeah.
But with regards to the taxation element, why shouldn't Airbnb pay any taxes?
No, I think that they should. I think people should pay taxes, and you know, the position, again, the official position of the company is that they should pay taxes, and the only thing that they're arguing for is to have fair taxation and fair regulation, right? So you want to be taxed at the same rate as the hotels. It shouldn't be uncompetitive. All should be on a level playing field. So 7.5% is what the hotels pay.
Okay.
Any government that goes above that, Airbnb views it as an uncompetitive market, so they wouldn't launch their new product trips. It's really not just about home sharing anymore. It's all these other opportunities that would be restricted from Barbadians, if you will. It's a bit strong of a word. If we don't do the level of taxation as the same.
Well, this is not a fair question to you, because the question would be is like this would be more put from the hotelier or the government side, is why is there a differentiation in the taxation between what has been explained to, has anything been explained to you why there's a need for a differentiation in taxation between, or why Airbnb should be treated different than a hotel?
No, nothing has been explained to me.
So nothing's been explained.
No.
So it's just
We haven't had a seat at the table. Actually, if you look here, I brought a lot of press and so on that was discussed, and one of them is essentially that Rudy Grant is saying the BHA has been given the opportunity to submit comments on proposed regulations for unregistered accommodation. And you know, that's the hotels giving their side of what the regulations and taxes should be. But the actual people in the Airbnb have not yet been invited to the table, and that's what we're really going after.
Well, maybe we can go a little bit into the taxation side, because Airbnb for me, when I travel, I use Airbnb almost exclusively because the type of I like the home type environments. I like having, you know, a washer, dryer, a stove, that type of thing. When I want the hotel experience, then obviously yes, I do the hotel experience.
Right.
And but in most instances, I'm familiar on that side with the Airbnb. I know people who have booked through the Airbnb portal here, but in terms of the taxation and differentiation, because I asked you a question earlier, and the question really relates to definition. By default, we've had villas here for many years. Villa rentals has been a big part of what we call our tourism industry. Villa rentals on the West Coast, villa rentals. That never seemed to have been an issue in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Again, these are not questions that I should be asking you, but you may or may not be able to answer them.
Right.
Why then all of a sudden there's a differentiation between Airbnb now when you've had villa rentals in the past?
So Airbnb didn't invite that. It didn't invent the idea of someone staying in a guest house. What they really just did invent is trust between strangers. And if you look at home away, flip key, couch surfing, if you go back here, all of them are at least 10 years old. Airbnb is the youngest one. And the big difference now is actually they take a more experimental way. So it was all commercial properties before for the most part. So if it was, let's say if it was home away, for example, you would have to pay a $300 listing fee from the get-go. With Airbnb, they changed the business model to we're only going to make a dime when you make a dollar. So that way people were able to put up their photos and so on. And because they're self-regulating, you have a very vested interest to keep your quality and standards high, right? So that's, I guess, is the big difference in why the hotels have been now kind of putting this in the media more so than, let's say, home away, which was 12 years ago.
One of the big question I have is that, yes, I understand on the regulation side that you want to have a regulation because, like, it's nice that I can go in and stay in an Airbnb, but do I want a Airbnb property next to me? Because that's another issue that you have to look at. Mm-hmm. But apart from the regulation side of things, this is not a new format. This format has been ongoing for a while. The villa rentals, and I use the villa rentals specifically. Yeah. The tourism industry never had a problem with villa rentals before. They've been an integral part of our guest houses. You have
our bed and breakfasts.
Our bed and breakfasts. Why is there all of a sudden this aversion to the Airbnb? So now you've said that you've had no meetings, so these questions are not really questions for you. These are questions that we really should be posing to the BHTA, Rudy Grant, because I'm having a hard time understanding why from a taxation perspective there is going to be a differentiation, because I have an aversion to what I call non-competitive barriers, and that is effectively what is transpiring. I can understand where the hoteliers in themselves want to protect, say, their market per se, but where I have the issue with is I don't have an issue with someone trying to protect their market. Mm-hmm. Where I don't understand, where my comprehension is not in play, is that we've had this here before, and those villa rentals are more in competition with the West Coast hoteliers, who I think the larger hotels are the ones who I'm assuming would be have the aversion to the Airbnb. Would that be accurate?
You could say so, but at the same time, I mean, the CMO of Hyatt, for example, we have a Hyatt coming into Barbados. She said Airbnb is not a threat, or not nearly as big as a threat as people think it is, and that's to her own business. So,
well, let's we'll move on there, because a lot of the questions is you're not going to be able to answer, and you haven't been able to get, from what I understand, you haven't been able to get those answers from the players in the industry, which I find very. I find it very concerning, the fact that you have a player. I was able to watch a documentary on Sunday on Airbnb, and to understand that Airbnb is a $30 billion company.
Yes, correct. 31 that since the
It's twice as big as Hilton. We recently gave out hundreds of millions of dollars in concessions to Sandals because we wanted access to their network.
Right.
If we take Sandals compared to the Airbnb network, we are is far superior.
So 150 million is the base. That's the base of their users.
So we have a situation where you're not asking for concessions.
No,
you're just asking to be treated fairly. So we as a country are not having to give up anything to have you here per se.
Yeah, and this has existed right now for, I would say, about 5-6 years, where no one that has an Airbnb has got any kind of concessions.
So you have
but they're bringing in foreign exchange for the country.
Right. So for example, if myself or Crystal decide that, hey, you know what, we just built a house and we want to, and we have a thing downstairs or to the side or whatever, and we want to rent out the downstairs part, and we want to do it on a short term. Now we haven't got any duty-free concessions to build the house. We didn't get any duty-free anything. So we already, Crystal and myself are starting at a disadvantage already. So to the Barbadian, I'm again speaking as a devil's advocate here. So as a Barbadian who wants to enter into this Airbnb scenario, we have a scenario where, for reasons not known to you, and we will try to follow up on our end, is that there's an aversion to Airbnb coming in here.
It's important to know a couple of things. One, the BHTA position is that, they want the same standards, regulations. They call for the same regulations and standards as the hotels here in Barbados. That's actually a breakaway from the CHTA's position, and Airbnb has also signed a deal with the CTO, the Caribbean Tourism Organization. So the CHTA has said very simply that, yes, these people are residences and they're hotels, but they can also become a business, so there's a middle ground here. So the official position, again, of the host community in Barbados, and I believe Airbnb as well, because I can't speak for them, full disclosure, I'm not on their payroll, I don't have shares in the company, is that there's a middle ground for regulation. We can't obviously be expected to be held to the same standards as the hotels, but we're not residences either, because we're commercial, right? We are accepting money from people.
Yes.
Right. I understand that, because I believe that there's an excess of taxation, and you will have to pay your taxes.
We want fair regulation and
so
fair taxation.
If you come under the Airbnb format, as I understand it, so maybe you'll explain what is it that Airbnb has agreed with the CTO, and for the purposes.
I can't speak to that deal particularly.
So
I can speak to how they collect taxes if you'd like me to.
Well, the CTO is a Caribbean Tourism Organization, right?
Correct, yeah.
And they're the collective body of the hoteliers and the tourist industry in the Caribbean.
And the CHTA as well too. They also have a hotel lobby for the entire
Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association.
Correct.
So you're saying that what territories in the Caribbean have not signed on? Because I heard on the radio today that Anguilla signed a memorandum of understanding.
I'm not particularly sure of which ones have signed on it yet and which ones haven't. I do know that the discussions with Jamaica, with Aruba, with Curacao, with Anguilla, as you mentioned, they've all been very positive, and people do understand this is a different category of product. It's not direct competition with the hotels. And there is this myth, and what I really love about this is that you guys are educating people. I saw a thread just last night where it was an attack on you guys, kind of. And a big problem in Barbados is that there's a lot of misinformation. So if you have tourism arrivals growing, it's actually not like a fixed sum. It's not a zero-sum game. For one person to win, the other person doesn't have to lose. So it's a different category. Some people that come here and stay in Airbnb, some people actually do come and stay in a hotel next, right? It's not that they're just fanatics and they're only going to stay in Airbnbs. They want both experiences. Because the truth is that a lot of the Airbnbs are not on the beach, they're not on the coast.
No.
Right? So it's a different experience when you're in a neighborhood versus directly on the beach. And as we all know, there's no windows to the sea anymore. The hotels have actually bought up the majority of the coastline. So,
see, I have a good friend that has a set of villas. I'm not going to give him a free plug tonight, so sorry, Errol. But I've seen some of his. So he has a very interactive experience with his guests. I mean, I've seen him. He has barbecues. He's gone to the races with them, to horse racing. He has karaoke some nights, and what he has basically is he calls it villas, and I'm not sure where they're located. They're not on the beach, and he has just a nice little backyard and a couple of plastic chairs, and everybody from his videos.
Right.
I would stay there.
So there's this.
You're not. We have an issue where the beach is overpopulated, but people still want to go to the beach. The beach properties are few and far between, and so would the Air BnB give an opportunity to someone who is sort of inland to have an opportunity to host, to be an Airbnb host?
Absolutely.
Or maybe leading into that is explain how Crystal or myself can become an Airbnb host.
Well, you just go to the website and there's a big button that says become a host. A big part of it is pictures, of course, right? People do think mostly in images, and you really want to see beautiful pictures first.
Yeah.
So in a lot of countries, they actually give jobs to photographers. You could actually press a button and a photographer will come to your house. Professional one, take pictures up for you. And then your job is to kind of like write descriptions on what's in your neighborhood and what you expect. And you raised a good point with like how close people are when they come to an Airbnb. It's like kind of like they're almost friends, because what happens is, if you think about it, if I met you or if I met Crystal on the street and we kind of hit it off or whatever the case may be, how long will it take for you to invite me into your house? Or how long will it take for you to invite me into your house? It takes quite a long time for that to happen. This actually compresses friendships. So like something that might take a year, if you're staying in someone's house for a week, it's a very personal space. You start to become very close friends with them. And you don't form deep cultural ties with like a destination or an actual building like a hotel. You form cultural ties and deep connections with people. And that's what brings people back to Barbados.
So essentially we can just go to the website, sign up. Let us assume, and then we have to wait and see what regulation, what taxes we needed to be calculated.
Well, right now the BTPA has a document that they're
What's the BTPA?
BTPA, sorry, is the Barbados Tourism and Project Authority, and they are in charge for regulating tourist accommodations in Barbados.
Okay.
So the last regulations were in 1982. So Dr. Hall is now starting the revamp of the regulations, and it's in draft form, and it looks like at a complete stage from what I've seen.
So you have sort of these regulations that are in draft form. Has the Airbnb people been able to have you, as I'm assuming you're some sort of representative for Airbnb?
So I'm the community organizer, and I'm not on their payroll, and I don't have any shares in the company. But a community organizer is someone that essentially just connects hosts with each other to serve the communities better, and then also to support fair home sharing legislation.
So from my understanding is that Airbnb initiated contact with someone here.
I would have reached out to them a couple of years back.
Who's them?
I usually write letters to people like and companies if I admire the company and so on. I would have reached out to Brian Chesky, the CEO. And
No. I meant here. So Airbnb would have contacted someone here saying they want to do. How did the process start? How did
as a community organizer?
No.
Or what?
I
thought you were asking particularly about me. Sorry.
No. How did Airbnb?
Right.
Who did they contact here and say, well, we want to regularize?
That's not how it works. You just go onto the website, you list your house, and they don't actually have a physical presence.
No, I meant like how did this whole regulation then come about then? How did all of a sudden we
Whenever you have a situation where the hotels raise regulations with the government, then Airbnb will say, you know what, it's not fair that only one side is painting the company in a certain light. Because they do have the hotels, the BHTA does have an established relationship with the regulatory agencies like the BTPA,
right,
and Minister of Finance,
for obvious
Minister
reasons,
of Tourism,
yeah.
for obvious reasons, because they're a big foreign exchange earner in the country. So whenever that happens, then Airbnb will realize that it does make sense to have someone here on the ground, or to send people from their offices to come and speak to the government.
Yeah,
that's what.
What I'm trying to is like somehow for them to raise it as a regulation, to try to get to the regulation stage.
This was the first article in the paper.
Right. What initiated the BHDA to raise it with the regulators then? What initiated the trying to make it
They would have seen it for themselves. You know, you hear things like, oh, there's Airbnb phenomenon and so on.
right? So when did this occur?
I would say 2015.
So that happened in
and then I was asked to give a presentation to the BHDA, so
Okay.
I gave one to Mr. Chatrani, who's my former boss, by the way.
Yeah, Sunil.
So Sunil, yes, Sunil, and then I also worked for Crane, so it's worth mentioning as well. I reported to Paul, but I gave a presentation to Sunil, Roseanne Myers, as well as Sue Springer at the time.
So you actually did a presentation to CHD,
On
and then from
the
there,
BHDA.
right, to the BHDA, and then from there, then they started, excuse me, raise the regulations.
And I would have met Kerry Hall after Dr.
So
Hall.
were you asked, or was Airbnb asked to make an input on the regulations?
Not that I know of, no, not as yet.
And do you know what the framework of these regulations are? Have anything been shared with you? Or
I know
Airbnb?
Sean came and gave a presentation in
Sean-
November.
you-
Sean, sorry. So Sean Sullivan is the head of policy for the region,
Right.
for Caribbean and Latin America. And he
This
came
is from
down
he's from Airbnb.
from Airbnb.
Right. Okay.
And he came down and he gave a presentation in November at Stotic, which is
Right.
the State of the Tourism Industry Conference.
Right.
And he's been down twice now within 6 months, and he's coming down again soon.
So effectively, there's a regulation that you will not. Will you find out about it before it becomes?
I believe one of the hosts have already written a letter to the BTPA, and yes, we're trying to get a meeting with Dr. Hall, the relevant authorities, to, you know,
Right.
have fair regulations passed. To have the hotels say what unregistered accommodations, what kind of regulations unregistered accommodations should have is quite unfair.
Because one of the things of this group is that we're very big on governance, and governance includes transparency, accountability, and participation. So if there's any regulations like that, we would assume that it would be transparent, it'd be shared, and before it becomes law or whatever you want to call it, that we're assuming that there'll be allowed participation, because there are a number of Airbnb property holders in Barbados and would have a vested interest in how that regulation is written as well.
And we're all happy to work with them. You know?
Right.
Everyone is happy. The host community is happy to work with them, and so on.
So are you
Both
of the
the hotels
are you
and-
of the opinion that you will have the ability to be participative in this?
I
right?
hope I get the chance to.
Right.
I would love,
Okay.
I would love
Oh,
to
great.
speak to Dr. Hall.
Right. Well, we can go that. Any questions from online?
Well, we had one actually from Colin, and he wanted to. Well, before I get into that, I actually wanted to make a comment with regards to the cultural aspect of Barbadians, where you talk about inviting persons, complete strangers, into your home, and I find that a little strange because I don't see the average Barbadian feeling comfortable with that. Maybe it's because of the living situation, the family situation, that you having children and having a stranger around your family. But how do you find Barbadians responded to? Is it something that's growing and they're getting more comfortable with it? Are you seeing more persons embracing
I
it?
can't speak for all Barbadians, of course, but what I would say is there are approximately 1,000 hosts, according to Sean. He's the guy that released the figures to the public.
Okay.
And you know, these people are not complete strangers, to be fair and to be honest. There are 7.3 billion people in the world today, 3 billion people are on the internet, 1.8 billion people are on Facebook. And a lot of people that are on Airbnb, they tie their Facebook accounts or their LinkedIn accounts to Airbnb. So it's not like a hotel where you can just go and book this person's house straight away. You actually do have to have some form of communication before you do that. Instant Book is something that came later, but a lot of people don't use Instant Book, which is you can book it like a hotel instantly without contacting the host.
So you found that the community has grown and the acceptance for bringing strangers into your
Yeah.
house.
So a stranger is just a friend you've never met before.
I'm gonna show my age here now, but I remember there was a time when there was a Barbados that were very welcoming, very before there was not as much now, but when I grew up, my grandparents they always had people in their house.
Yeah.
I remember you would turn up there one week and a whole water polo team from Puerto Rico would be in your house, or someone from 3 or 4 people from Venezuela, I remember one afternoon, all the family was in the gallery, and these two tourists walked up the stairs and they sat down, and my grandfather walked over them and said, "Can I help you?" And they said yes, and they ordered two drinks. My grandfather went inside, they mixed the drinks, came back to them, and they said, "Well, how much is it?" He said, "No, there's no charge. You're in my house." And the people were so embarrassed, but they ended up staying, and they met the family, and Barbados in the 60s and 70s was people didn't lock the doors, and it was a very open policy, and Barbados used to be known as very with the tourists, it was always repeat guests, and a lot of the tourists that came back, actually, they would end up staying in a hotel and end up staying with people. And likewise, when people went away to places in England or wherever they stayed in a hotel, they met someone in a hotel and they end up staying with the person when next time they came back. So we've always had that Airbnb mentality.
And it's a good thing that there was a study that was done in 2007. I have it right here in front of me, and you know, it's overwhelmingly positive for, you know, they went around to different people, different neighborhoods, and they asked, how do you feel about having a bed and breakfast in your neighborhood? Again, if you look at all these stats here, it's overwhelmingly positive. The only caveat is that they want a heads up that, yes, there will be tourists in the neighborhood, which is fair.
Yeah, but there's a reason we moved away from that culture, because the fear didn't just breed out of nowhere. There's more and more mistrust because there are more and more incidents of persons' trust being betrayed.
Right.
And I remember, I'm not that old, but I remember growing up and leaving the house open and not locking up and having all of this fancy security that we now see as a necessity. And with more and more incidents of persons being robbed and being taken advantage of, you see that closing off to the point where people are even afraid to give a stranger a drop on the highway.
I don't do it anymore. I used to, but I certainly don't do. I certainly don't do it anymore, because you don't know if you're like that. Now, what I was on since we're on this topic, I'll talk to Neeraj on this, because today on the news, I had two things in the news. One positive on Airbnb, one not so positive.
Right.
We had Anguilla signed on to the memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
Then we had then in the news in Miami, there was massive protests, and they had planes with banners "No to Airbnb." People simply did not want them in their neighborhoods. Now, if I take the contrarian view now as well, is that, as what Crystal said, do I want a scenario where they're strangers? Like, at least we're in a neighborhood. She knows who her neighbors are. I know who my neighbors are. Everybody knows who their neighbors are. All of a sudden now, every week, you're having strange characters coming in through. You don't know what they're going to be doing. I've had a scenario one time where I was living somewhere near somebody, and they had visitors in, and they had fairly dubious characters visiting, dropping off deliveries. If you know, and I can only assume what they were. So we have to look at the good. We also have to look at the bad.
Sure.
And the people in Miami who have a lot more experience with the Airbnb scenario are having issues that it's in their neighborhood. And I know that some of the Airbnb properties that I've actually shied away from those where I see they tell you don't talk to the security guard, don't talk, just come straight in, meaning that it's obviously not allowed in the building, and they don't want anybody to know, so they're telling you in advance in a diplomatic way, don't let people know that you're a temporary guest.
Right. So Airbnb does weed out these bad players in the market. You know, they just took off, I would say, I think it was like 900 homes in San Francisco that weren't following the rules and regulations. Right. So they do
some self-enforcement.
Absolutely, they do self.
And there's a rating system as well.
There's also a two-sided rating system that keeps the quality of Airbnb's high. You know, in the news, there's all these articles about watering down the product, and actually, Crystal has one right there. I wish we could show it to the camera, but it does say that we want to compete on quality. Now, if you take all the ratings from TripAdvisor, the peer ratings, not the star ratings of the hotels, you take all the peer ratings from TripAdvisor, and you take all the peer ratings, the guest ratings from Airbnb, what you're looking at is a situation where you have 15 to 20% higher satisfaction from guests that visited Airbnb over hotels. So a lack of regulations does not mean a lack of standards.
So let's move away now. I really wish we'd had someone from the hotel and tourism industry, because I don't know the issues they have, and I'm only going to try to envisage some. I'm a hotelier. I invested $100 million into a plant. I'm hiring 50 or 60 employees, and I'm providing a service. And then up next door, and we're, for lack of a better term, we may or may not be taking away guests, but let's assume that we are a competitor to them. How then do you explain to the hotelier that has bought $100 million property that tomorrow myself and Crystal has to compete against it?
Hoteliers have gone through this before, you know.
If you're a $100 million hotel, you're worried about an Airbnb.
Yeah, I would not.
Then
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out. So
I would look at it through this lens, right?
Yeah.
Expedia started in 1996 or 1997. So I'm really here to just offer perspective. And Expedia started in 1996 or 97. And what happened is they kind of commoditized all the hotels. So when you're looking to book a hotel as a guest, you're seeing 4 walls and a bed. And after that, what happened was you have all this innovation that's coming from outside the hotel industry. Because there's this demand from customers that I don't want to just sleep in 4 walls and a bed. So you had timeshares that came out from outside the hotel industry. And then you had boutique hotels because people wanted a more intimate experience, right? And now timeshares and boutique hotels are their own category of product. Again, not from the hotel industry, from outside. And now home sharing is a third category. Right. So if you look at Hilton, if you look at Hyatt's, Sheraton, Marriott, whatever big hotel chain, they all have some aspect of what? Timeshares and boutique hotels. And now the smart ones are catching on and saying, Expedia has just bought HomeAway and Accor Hotels has just bought One Fine Stay. So it's a situation where you want to work with them, not try to compete against them. Right. The 20th century was really about, I'm going to be a competitive survivalist machine, right? And the 21st century is more about being cooperative innovation engines. So for example, Sean has actually said, let's meet the BHTA. In St. Lucia, there's a big hotelier, and he said, well, I actually want to up. And if you actually go on the website and look at the different listings, you can see the number of views per week that people are seeing. So when someone wants to look at Barbados, you can see, well, okay, well, this property was viewed maybe 500 times a week. And those impressions are coming up to about 8 million for Barbados annually. And they're seeing very high quality, actually. The high ratings, 5 stars, and so on. And Airbnb is doing all this free marketing for Barbados. It's really a marketing mechanism, a distribution mechanism.
Because I have a wide network. Like, again, using my example, I use Airbnb, and I'm going to a destination, and it just so happened that I came up, and it had experiences came up. The same thing that I was talking about. And it listed all the places, and it happened to have a neighborhood in the place that we're going to. So what do you think we're doing? We're going to that neighborhood to go and see what it looks like, to see that if the next time we go there, that we may want to stay there.
Right.
I have 2 questions coming in. Wanted to have an explanation of the difference between Airbnb and the home exchange services that were popular in the 90s. There's
not much of a difference. The business model is a little bit different, where they changed it from we'll make a dime when you make a dollar. So it allowed people to kind of experiment and put their properties up, as opposed to paying $300, which is kind of like, it lowers the friction.
Okay, so
for
that
someone.
had a fee.
Yes, for example, like HomeAway had a $300 fee, I believe it was. When I was listing my property, it was like, well, am I willing to pay $300? Because I'm outside the tourism belt, right? Mine is in Graham Hall. So am I willing to pay $300, or would I just want to list for free and see what happens and pay a small percentage? A really important point is that they only take 3%. Expedia and Priceline take up to 15 to 35%. So the majority of the money with Airbnb is coming into Barbados. We have this issue with leakage in the country.
Yes.
And hotels are leaking up to maybe 25% of the foreign exchange just off the top of their revenue, right? And I personally don't think maybe drug dealers will even pay that much to launder their money. So,
you brought out a point that I was gonna, because our biggest challenge here in Barbados is now we have a foreign exchange problem, and there's a couple of things we want to do a couple of segments on tourism, because tourism, in our opinion, is one of the biggest driving factors, not only in growing the productive side of the economy, but also too with the foreign exchange. And our biggest concern is it's fine to give incentives. We want to know what the net is. I'd be interested in certainly in the sandals side of things.
Right.
I want to know what the net foreign exchange is with us. I know you can't answer that, but that's something that we'll be dealing with that coming on. So we have Hayat coming up now. Great. We need foreign direct investment. We want access to their marketing programs as well. But we want to know that there's a net inflow of foreign exchange. So leakages
gross is what's reported in the media.
Yeah, I'm not interested in gross. I'm looking for what actually lands in Barbados.
So if we know that 50%, almost 50% of bookings from the hotel comes from Expedia or Priceline, 25% commission is going away.
Correct.
Then that's not even including their sales offices. It's not including, the actual rent that they have to pay, wages and salaries and so on. So
at least that'll be coming in here. But is there?
But they have to pay those salaries outside, and they have to pay. Expedia is not going to, Priceline is not going to accept Barbadian dollars. Right. So there's a study that was done and says up to 80% in the Caribbean is leaked out.
80%?
80% is leaked out. It's actually right here.
Can you share this? Can you share that on the page?
Yeah, I actually have a Google Drive link that I'll share, so we can show notes after. Everyone can see the figures, how the data is
So you're saying about 80% of the foreign exchange coming here is leaked?
No, I'm not saying I'm saying that. I'm saying that there's a study done, and I'm referencing the study.
In the Caribbean?
Yep.
But then from the Airbnb's perspective, the funds have to be Airbnb make sure that the funds are
Can you help me here, Crystal? Here you go.
Okay.
A study of tourism
Yeah.
in the Caribbean to 40% India. Who did this study?
The references are at the back, right here.
Okay, so this is referencing 4
And this is a United Nations study. 4. Okay.
We just simply don't know. A lot of the hotels are private, so.
So all right, so we have Airbnb, and I'm interested in that. My guest box gives Airbnb US dollars. The US dollars has to come in. Suppose I am unscrupulous and I have an account set up overseas. Does Airbnb allow me to post in a foreign account, or it has to come to the account?
There's 3 options. One of them is PayPal, the other one is a wire transfer, and the other one is Western Union.
Right.
So a lot of people in Barbados don't have foreign exchange accounts, it's illegal to have them and so on. So the majority of money is coming into the island. Again, they only charge 3%.
So you're saying that 97% should, for all intents and purposes, reaches
minus the $10 fee that Western Union charges, or whatever the case may be.
So effectively 97% in an Airbnb format should come here.
And compare and contrast that to the hotels, which leaks out, I would say 25% again. Right?
What
That's important to know.
has Airbnb done a study as to what they see the net foreign exchange benefit is to Barbados?
They don't really look at foreign exchange. It's really a unique thing to the Caribbean.
Well,
but
their sales volume then.
They do EIAs. They do economic impact assessments around the world. And for example, the CTO deal that you mentioned before, they've signed a deal where it's, from what I've read in the newspaper, I don't have any inside information on the deal, it says that they want to share some data with the CTO. So I would imagine maybe some of that data is economic.
So would Airbnb be able to say how much bookings actually are from Barbados? Do they have that data publicly available?
No. Same with the hotels.
Okay.
And by the way, Expedia, Priceline, HomeAway, Flipkey, Couchsurfing, all these different things.
Because I'd be curious.
They haven't come down to Barbados to say this is what's happening.
For us to truly evaluate it, I think it'd be a good way of seeing actually what is the true metric it is to Barbados. Like what is the value of the Airbnb sector to Barbados? Do you think that's possible that?
I can't speak for the company.
No, but I mean, is if you can ask them if they can, actually say, because like the same way that we know that they're a $30 billion company, is there a mechanism that they could say that for the Barbados alone, you have 1.2 million a year, or 10 million a year, or whatever, and that's the value of Airbnb to Barbados? Would that would you be able to reach out to them and see if they'd be able to provide that information?
I could ask a question, but I don't think that,
Yeah.
you know, they...
But it would help their cause, certainly.
It would definitely help their cause, and maybe Sean has that in his plans,
Right.
and I'm just not sure, you know.
Right,
I was
okay.
not privy to the conversations
No
that
problem.
Sean had with the government.
Again, I wish the BHD was here, because then they could ask from their side, and I tried to do that.
A lot of your questions actually are covered in here.
Okay.
Right. We had one other question where the person was asking what was the nexus for the tax for the service fee earned by Airbnb and for the revenue earned for the property owner.
Sorry?
I think you'd have to break that question
Okay.
I didn't understand.
I
It's
think,
Colin.
yeah, it's Colin, and I tried to tell him to break it down a little bit more.
What is the nexus for the tax?
Ready.
And what else?
No.
For the tax, for the service fee earned
All right,
by
let me-
Airbnb.
For the service fee.
All right, let me break it down. Obviously, there's going to be what he's really trying to say is that there's a commission fee
Okay.
by Airbnb,
Right.
and let us do the next step, which is there's a commission fee earned by Expedia and the tour reps. How is the taxation on that being treated? Is there a withholding tax? Is there a proposal to have a withholding tax on the amount that's on the 3%?
I'm not sure.
It's another
You would
regulation.
have to speak to the Ministry of
Because
Finance. or
because
whatever
again,
it may be.
if you do it on the Airbnb,
Right.
then you have to do it on the Expedia, and you have to do it on the
That's an important point.
the
right?
tour operators,
Because
because
if the
it's,
government doesn't sign a deal with Airbnb, then what will happen is people will pull these listings off, and then they could easily just put it on Facebook, for example, and the government would lose out on tax revenue. It's actually, they have a player at the table, and what happens is they're going to remit the taxes directly into the government every month on a monthly basis. And that's very different than the hotels, for example, because working at a hotel, you see that they actually, the onus is on the individual to pay the tax every 2 months. You know, you have to go and pay that every 2 months. With Airbnb, what they do is they collect the tax at the point of transaction, that 3%. Or, yeah, in this case, it would be 7.5%, for example. And then they remit that to the government on a monthly basis so that the default rate drops to 0.
Okay. So,
With regards to the withholding tax, I'm not sure. The 3% fee, how it's calculated from the host, they charge a 3% fee for the host and a 6 to 12% fee for the guests. They're an online marketplace that connects guests and hosts.
okay.
That's their business model.
All right.
Sorry if I didn't answer your question.
No, you did, but I didn't expect you would know that. I'm just saying if you did. Now we've touched on a few things here, and I know there were some other things that you wanted to talk about. So
Right.
we can give you the opportunity now to touch base on some of the other items that you had. Unless you think that we covered them, because there are a couple of.
I would ask Crystal to actually flip some pages and maybe see if she wants to ask a question with something that's there.
the main question I had wanted to get coverage on, they were answered, because the taxation element, I know that that's a serious concern. The leakage is also a concern, especially with all these particular hotels, the concessions they would have received. That was also a concern for most people. And then trying to not just look at the financial interest of a particular sector, but how it contributes to society, because there are a lot of connections that people don't typically make. They look at just the financial side, but the social aspect that would be introduced, which you touched on when you spoke about bringing persons in and increasing that culture of accepting strangers and getting back to that place and seeing if you can build back a level of trust with Barbadians and to build connections with persons who are outside of your circle, because many Barbadians don't get to go outside of this 246 to see another culture.
I would argue the exact opposite. I would say Barbadians are incredibly very warm and friendly people. And when you have a tourism product where you want to compete, like
Warm and friendly is not the issue,
right.
but invite some person into your
Your
house.
So
That's a bit-
Again,
I think
so there was a
that
study
period
that-
has changed.
there was a study that was done back in 2007, and it very much says that people are fine with it. Overwhelmingly
Barbados?
positive. Yeah, the
Okay.
data's right there.
Right, okay.
I think one of the things is that the Airbnb model, like sharing. I know someone.
There you go.
I will
Yeah.
tell you. I know like how someone would do it is and we've rented from people like this is they travel. Their work is overseas.
Yes.
So they may be away for a month here, a month there, 3 months here. So you can't book. All, like, you can't say, well, I'm traveling in February, I want to stay at your place in February. They'll say, no, I'm living here in February.
Right.
You can come in May. So Airbnb may not be for everyone. And then there's some people, so they'll actually, the one person I know, he has a 2-bedroom place. He puts his stuff, and he uses 1 bedroom, and the other bedroom he rents out.
Right.
So the person staying there would effectively have a 1-bedroom apartment. The 2nd bedroom has a lock on it.
Right.
There are people overseas that does the same thing. That's been my experience with Airbnb. What you're really referring to is if you have a 2-bedroom place, you're staying in 1 bedroom, and a person is staying in next, because there is a shared
There are
facility.
3 categories that we actually didn't cover from the beginning. We should have probably done that so that our viewers could see exactly what Airbnb is about on the home sharing aspect, because they just launched trips. So home sharing is broken down into 3 categories. It's you can rent an entire house, everyone knows that. Then you can rent a private room. The private room is like if you have a married couple, for example, that has a child, maybe a son or a daughter that went off to college, and they have this spare room, they want to earn some extra money and not be as lonely. So they would open up their spare room to Airbnb and open up to guests.
That's the option I actually had more so
I think
in my
that's
head.
what
Where persons have spare room, or they built the house in such a way that you can have a separate living quarter for persons to use in that manner. And because I have some friends that have used that.
That might be an entire house, right? A private room is different when it's actually in the house itself.
Yeah.
So, like, say for example, if you're going away for 3 weeks, and you have a 2-bedroom place, you might post for those 3 weeks alone.
Right.
So while you're away, your house is making money.
Yeah. And it's an option that some agents can explore and get into, and if they're comfortable with it, this is where I was glad the cultural aspect was touched on. But
it's important to note that the white paper on the development of tourism that was written by Carrie Hall, there's a quote right here. Let's see. It says that the Barbadians should be at the epicenter of the industry's development. And as such, the government fully understands that for tourism to be truly sustainable, it must put the Barbadian people at the epicenter of the industry's development. So that's a big point. It's actually kind of a case for Airbnb, because they do put people at the heart of their product.
But I think from your perspective, is there anything else that you want to add?
I would say that if you're looking at today, like a lot of people are focused on today, they're not really focused on the actual future. They're focused on the regulations and taxation of the home sharing. But what we would do is, if we don't get that right, then it's a bad signal to other companies like Silicon Valley right now, and so on. They're going to be looking at Airbnb as a natural fit for Barbados.
When you say Silicon Valley natural fit for Barbados, what do you mean by that?
I say Airbnb is a natural fit for Barbados in the sense that it's a tourism-dependent country. And sorry, what was the question again?
No, you mentioned something about Silicon Valley.
Right.
Related to Airbnb and sends a bad message. How's the link between Silicon Valley?
The future product trips is really what I would like to kind of get that point across to whoever's regulating, whoever's taxing. Yep. That if you don't get this part with the home sharing right, then you block all those future products for Airbnb's trips, right? Because they're not going to come into an uncompetitive environment.
What do you mean by Airbnb trips?
Airbnb trips is a new product. You had stepped out when
sorry.
That's okay. So it's broken down into experiences and immersions. Experiences are a few hours per day. So you could go on maybe like do an island tour with someone, and an immersion would be like maybe actually surfing with your son Josh, right? So you could spend 5 days.
The other brother.
Sorry, the other brother. With Josh, you could spend 5 days down Bathsheba, for example.
Right.
And actually,
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I saw on the video, because I encourage everyone. We posted the video on the site, and we'll post back a link again, where I was very interested in this thing with experiences, because what I find that the travel nowadays is more, because we'll touch on sports tourism a while, but most of my travel, if I wanted, well, not so much now, but I play field hockey, and I would like to go field hockey or go to some a cricket sporting event, and the same thing here. People would want to have an experience and book sort of experiences, a music festival, crop over a festival, or So I was very interested in that part of Airbnb, the experiences part, where you list off, all right, you might have a surfing experience, as we said, surfing experience. It could be Australia, it could be in California, it could be Barbados. But
Right.
you pick which one you want to go, and it prompts you. So you're not actually looking for Barbados, but you're looking for a surfing experience. Or you might be looking for a hockey festival to go to, and you see hockey festivals all over the world.
Yeah.
There's one in Netherlands that has 10,000 people in a 4-week period.
You could go to Japan and learn how to use a samurai sword with an actual samurai.
Right.
It's really cool stuff. Like in Cuba,
That's-
for example, you can go and do samba classes, and
So
that's
if
a
I
Caribbean
if I
country.
see my wife signing up for that program,
So this
sleep with one eye open.
It's a Caribbean country, and yeah, it's a Caribbean country that's actually beat us to the game. And I actually see Barbados was always a leader in tourism, and it's unfortunate to see that we're not, one of those cities that's launched yet. We really should be, in my opinion,
No, that's it, because
it turns individuals
you have
into
to-
foreign exchange earners.
right, it should tie into a network. I think one of the key things for me is for us, we're looking at foreign exchange. We're looking for what keeps foreign exchange here. Those things that you talk about, experiences. That means that when tourists come here,
Mm-hmm.
more of the money in their wallet stays here than go back out with
Yeah.
them. So we want to create more, see what there is in the tourism market that can create more of these experiences for people.
Right.
I know Jeremy posted
A photo.
a photo of tourists,
Arrivals versus tourist spend, and then there's
Yeah.
a person sitting down and having lunch.
yeah, out of a
Right.
styrofoam container.
Yeah.
So so while tourists are being more cost effective,
Mhm.
if you have other experiences, then you have more of an opportunity to pull from their wallet.
Exactly.
Okay. So,
Any comments? Or?
I think I learned a lot, and
So did I.
this, for me personally, because it's an avenue that I actually wanted to explore for myself, and I really appreciate the knowledge sharing and the value of showing how sharing information can actually lead to practical solutions for not only myself but other Barbadians out there who may have never even considered this as an option. Seeing the connection between this industry and how it can earn foreign exchange for the country, and seeing how it can bring back a aspect of Barbadian culture that may have been perceived as lost but is now flourishing under this industry. Seeing the response to the accusations by the hotel industry and having that clarified and seeing how we can now get this industry a seat at the table.
Yeah, I think for balance, we really need the
Agreed.
hoteliers,
Agreed.
their viewpoint. But as I said, we reached out to them and
Did not.
did not show up.
Yeah.
I just want to comment before we start to wrap up. I just want to comment. I want to show something here. I really would like to commend Neeraj for the time and effort that he's put. This is what Neeraj produced for us today.
I was like, wow.
So this is what me and Crystal had to read as best as we could. But look at the extent of the documentation that Neeraj has produced
Yes.
for us, and I'm thoroughly impressed. And it's
So
great.
future guests have to step up.
Yes, I think it's great that Neeraj has given of his time to come and explain it, and I think that it'd be fair to say that he's explained it in a very neutral position. Obviously, he's trying to promote Airbnb, but his position or role in Airbnb is like a speck of a dust on the global planet, because you only have a small, very small, but you have an interest in Barbados going forward, and
Yeah.
and like me, I want to see.
I want to see more employment, because if you look at what Richard Seeley said, he said that he wants tourism to be the point of full employment, 14,000 people. And a great way to do that is to actually have individuals act as tourism entrepreneurs, right? So
And-
if you view trips, that's a great way to be a tourism entrepreneur, because any surfer can now be a business, for example, and it gives you marketing distribution, right? Free marketing.
Scuba diving, scuba diving experience, diving with Rex in Barbados, jet ski experience.
Exactly. Any person that is really artist, because the truth is that you have an education system where they have all these professionals like accountants, lawyers, doctors, and so on, but all the artists never had distribution. So all the creative people now do actually have distribution.
Adonijah, RPP, hope you're listening.
I'll invite them to my house.
If
to
you're a
play some-
musician, like Nikita, I just spoke to Nikita that sings tequila, for example, and
Yeah.
she's interested, she's expressed an interest. And a point that we actually didn't get to touch on is charities now also get to list on trips. So, for example, the Barbados Sea Turtle Project, they can have like a walk on the boardwalk that they usually do. They would now be able to offer like a $10 charge per visitor. And what happens is Airbnb waives all the fees. So the charity gets to keep 100% of the foreign exchange. And again, that's foreign exchange that never used to come into the country before, is now coming into the country, and everybody wins. You know, it's a win-win situation for the charity, for the country, and for Airbnb.
Right. Yeah, I think it's
And the visitor, which is the most important part.
one of the other concern is that we ventured into something like Sandals because we wanted to be part of their network. Because if Sandals,
Right,
if people, correct. So if people weren't coming here, they'd be going to one of the other Sandals.
Correct.
And I think it would be disingenuous of us not to actually explore the Airbnb option, because we would like to have a scenario where when people come looking for Airbnb, that Barbados is prominent within that, and that the person who is booking through Airbnb books to come to Barbados, because we don't want to lose that segment that's booking on Airbnb and will choose to go somewhere else because Barbados is not offered.
Exactly.
And I think that somewhere along the lines, some compromise has to be done between the hoteliers and the regulators and Airbnb in terms of how to make this work, because I don't believe it's I don't ever believe in that it's a my way, or I believe there's always a middle of the road. They can't be. It has to be a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I was surprised to see the BHTA pull away from the CHTA position, for example. You know, that extreme kind of position is kind of surprising to me.
Well,
given that we're in a foreign exchange crisis right now, and
hopefully we are trying to generate a tourism discussion, and certainly
if they're willing to come on the next show, I'm happy to come back and discuss it.
Well, we will try to raise it with them. Because there are other issues, there are niche tourism things that we want to talk about, sports tourism, etc. That's my pet peeve, and so what we want to do is look for avenues that we can, as Barbados, make money and keep the foreign exchange here. But we need to look at areas where we can move the country forward, because we're in a bit of an issue at this moment. So we're very happy to hear of the initiative, and that someone like yourself give the time to explain to us. And
I love what you guys are doing, so I'm happy to be here.
So I would say that I learned a lot. What were you, Chris?
Just another quick question that came up from the audience, where I should have asked, which I'm glad that he posed the question. What is the insurance coverage like for persons in Airbnb?
So I've actually spoken to a couple of insurance companies, and there's a middle ground again, right? They're looking into crafting home sharing insurance. Okay. So, for example, Allstate offers a home sharing insurance policy to people in the US.
Insurance companies.
So they're using that as a template, and it's a new business for them. It's also a new business for the banks, because now the banks have a way to offer a home improvement loan product. So $5,000 to $10,000, maybe up to $20,000 on fixing up your kitchen or whatever the case may be. And then the central bank is promoting that because that's foreign exchange coming into the country again.
So the insurance companies that have been in the discussions?
I can't say which ones.
Not to say which ones, but...
But of course, I've spoken to local insurance companies, and they're interested in doing it because it's extra business for them. It's more business for the banks, as we all know the banks have excess liquidity, and they're looking for new products to try and get more lending.
And just a disclaimer, I do work for Sagicor. So
okay.
Just so that you're aware. But
So
innovation is always ahead of regulation, right? Henry Ford didn't have a driver's license. So that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing this situation where they have to craft regulations. Before there weren't timeshare regulations, now they have to be.
But see, I'm not understanding that, because as I said, what puzzles me is that there's suddenly a need to regulate when we've had villas here for many a time.
I guess people staying, the private room might be
the issue.
Maybe that's the issue. I'm not sure, but
so when we go home tonight to our respective spouses, we can tell them we're hoteliers tomorrow.
I plan to do it, whether or not they see what happens with that.
But I've always known Dover Woods Guest House, for example. I grew up in that guest house because Chris was my best friend, Auntie Gail, and she's always lived with her guests. So I just don't see what the real issue is.
That's the thing. There's always been guest houses type arrangements,
exactly,
but not anymore. It's, as Crystal said, times have changed, and I think one of the things that we need to look at is there's obviously opportunity challenges. We touched on the opportunities, and the opportunities are great. You have the challenges. We got to address them. that, you know, when you go into a neighborhood, there's covenants in your neighborhood, and you don't want to have a situation where you have a bachelor party at your house every week on a different set of bachelors, because you have they might have a 3-bedroom house next door to you and 15 people staying in it.
Right. I forgot about the Silicon Valley connection that you made before.
Right.
It's that, you know, Silicon Valley, I've been visited there a couple of times now, and there are these companies that want to utilize the IBC legislation. That legislation is already in place. So we have IBM here, we used to have Intel before. Why isn't like a Facebook or Google in Barbados? That's a big point. And if Barbados were to kick out Airbnb and say, well, or the hotels kind of get their way and they push the government to tax us higher, then they're sending a signal to the other companies that just don't even come here, don't bother to come.
Yeah, you're not wanted.
You're not wanted, right? So why isn't there Facebook or Google setting up small offices?
Yeah,
here?
because those companies have a psyche of you know, of one for all type of thing. They understand that what they're doing, they're pushing the envelope. They're innovators. They're pushing the envelope, and they're changing old ways of thinking. So if you have a situation where you have a country and we don't really accept innovation or per se, then they'll say there's no point going there.
Right.
And then we lose out that other side of the business.
Yeah, maybe even Airbnb might set up an office here. Who knows? Because they don't have one for the Caribbean region.
There you go. Start writing. You got 2 things to add that to the list.
I will.
Now we want an Airbnb head office here. Okay.
So
Anything else?
I think that is as extensive as we should get in the hour.
We even went over by a little bit. Anything you want to say just to wrap up, Neeraj?
No, nothing. I just really appreciate the opportunity to come here. I hope I dispelled a lot of the myths that people might have had from seeing all the things in the press. And yeah, it was great.
Well, it was certainly a pleasure on my part to have you here.
And I'm personally excited.
Yeah, so just send a message to my wife. We're hotelier tomorrow.
Thank you very much. And I keep forgetting now that we have all this fancy technology. Somebody has to get up and turn it off.
Well, thank you very much, folks. Have a good night, and thank you for joining us.